Hey, what is up guys, Michael here from COPPERVSGLASS. Now as you may or may not know, at the moment my current daily driver is actually an iPhone. Now the public beta for iOS 10 is now out, so I thought I'd install it on my device, go over some of the good points and some of the bad points of this new OS to see if it is really that big a departure from what we've had beforehand. Now in terms of the actual update itself, it can sometimes take its time. I've heard reports of it taking around half an hour or so, but it has also taken as little as 10 minutes on some people's devices. With myself, it took around 20 minutes or so, but once everything was done, I'm up and running with iOS 10 Beta 2. So as you can see here, if I just go into the settings of my device, go into general and then also software update, you can see that I'm running iOS 10.0. Now in terms of the visual changes, that's mainly what this OS is going to bring from what I can see anyway, and I've only been playing around with it for a couple of days, but I definitely like what I see. Now starting off then, we are going to have a little bit of a redesign in the way that the actual OS looks, but again it's nothing drastic and not really a massive change from what we've seen before, but there are some cool and also some new animations which we're going to be taking a look at in this video. First up, and one of the visual changes, is definitely the notification center. As you can see here, you've got the standard controls in terms of brightness, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, night shift mode, and also some quick access to things like the flash and also the camera. If you swipe over though, in my case I've got Spotify or whichever music application it is that you're going to be running, and again you can use this as normal. You've got all the controls here for play and pause with some cool animations to the artwork, as you can see there as well. Now one thing I would say is when you try to do things like access the volume, as you can see there, sometimes it tries to skip back to the previous card, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. But in terms of the way that it looks and the way that it functions, I've not really had any problems with it, and for a beta it's also quite consistent in terms of the frame rates of the animations and things. But in general, this is a change that I actually enjoy and one that I'm looking forward to some extra widgets and features being added. Next up then, we have a change to the notifications. Now you access them in exactly the same way, but as you can see they look completely different. Now a lot of people are saying that iOS 10 is stealing a bunch of stuff from Android. However, I would tend to disagree. I've used both Android and iOS, and the way that this looks isn't like anything that I've personally seen on Android. Yes, there's a slight card interface, so you can come at it from that angle, but just in general it looks really nice. You can look at your individual notifications, clear or view individual notifications, and you also got a clear all button, which doesn't actually get rid of all of your notifications, it just gets rid of them for that specific day. So if like me, you sometimes leave notifications for a day or two on that screen, they're going to still be there. Now if you swipe over then to the left hand side, as you can see here, you've basically got your widgets page, which has been here beforehand, and this includes things like weather and other widgets that you want to put on there for yourself. In my case, I've got a subscription counter for my YouTube account, as you can see here, news and things like that, and then you can also go into the edit functionality to see which other widgets and things you've got access to, and there are a bunch here, but keep in mind that some applications like Real Racing 3, yes it has a widget, but is it going to be very useful? Well, not really, and that's definitely something to keep in mind. But again, in terms of the look and feel with this kind of panelled interface going from left to right, which matches exactly what you've got then with the notification center, it does look really nice. As you can see here, you can access certain applications from this screen as well without any problems at all. So again, in terms of the visual consistency that they've got here with iOS 10, I'm definitely a fan. Something that's changed in this beta as well is you actually have to press the home button in to access the fingerprint sensor if you've got the screen turned on. This has changed in some of the newer developer updates, but if you're using the public beta, just be aware that this is still baked in. Speaking of the lock screen, again from this screen you can access the same widget panel, and it's got a really nice clock animation, as you just saw as I pulled that over from the left hand side to the right. And again, these are the exact same widgets that you're going to find on your home screen to the far left hand side, and you can also swipe from right to left to get quick access to the camera. And again, this is pretty similar to what we've had beforehand, but again there are some visual changes which look nice, but nothing crazy in terms of on the home screen, but that was never really a problem for me anyway. There's also some other visual changes. So in terms of going into the folders, as you can see here, it blurs out the background and kind of zooms in on the folder that you want to look at, and this looks really nice in my opinion and gives it a really nice visual flair, especially if you've got a lot of colourful icons on your home screen. Now speaking of icons on the home screen, one thing that they didn't mention at the keynote is you can actually delete Apple applications. So if you don't want to have things like Mail and Maps because you're going to be using Gmail and Google Maps, then you can save yourself a little bit of space by getting rid of them on the device itself, which is definitely a welcome change, because as you can see here, my extras folder is basically all of the Apple applications that I don't really use on a daily basis, because I am baked into the Google ecosystem, so I've got a bunch of Google applications that do the exact same thing. Now guys, keep in mind that there are a bunch more changes to iOS 10, and if you guys want to see a full in-depth video when iOS 10 comes out, then be sure to let me know. Now I'm not going to go too much more in depth in this video because, as I mentioned, it is still a beta and there are some features that are a little bit buggy, so if you are going to be installing it on your daily driver, that's definitely something to be aware of. In terms of myself though, I've not really had that many issues with the public beta. However, some people online have been saying that there are a load of problems, going really slow, and they're having a lot of difficulty with the beta itself, but I've not really come across any of these problems. Now obviously, once some more people start to get iOS 10, some of these specific features like using iMessage from iOS 10 devices to another iOS 10 device, you're going to see some really cool stuff as well, so I will be updating this video once iOS goes live in around August time this year. And that is where this video is going to be ending, guys. Now as I mentioned, I haven't been using iOS 10 beta for all that long, but once I find some cool new features or just in general some new things that weren't there before, I will be updating this video with a newer one, or I might just leave it until the full public one is released later in August to give you guys a full update on all of the new features of iOS 10. As always guys, if you do want to follow me on any of my social networks, I'm going to have them linked down below for Beme, Instagram and Twitter. So again, if you guys want to follow me on any of those, then you can do. And the best way to get hold of me is actually to tweet me at COPPERVSGLASS. Now if you guys have got any questions about iOS 10, then be sure to leave them in the comments section down below, or again hit me up on Twitter. For more great content, don't forget to subscribe. I'm Michael from COPPERVSGLASS. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video.